Okay, everyone, welcome to the Respect the Math podcast brought to you by Reliable Tech Help. For all of your IT needs, call Reliable Tech Help at 502-797-7399 or visit our website at reliabletechhelp.com. That's reliabletechhelp.com. I'm your host, Digital David Snyder. Here at the Respect the Math podcast, we talk about everything from technology to business, science, popular culture, and more. Basically, the things that I'm interested in because I'm kind of selfish that way. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, and podcast apps from Apple, Google, Spotify, Amazon, Pandora, iHeart, and others. Please interact with us online, and if you like what you hear, please subscribe and share our content. We would love to hear from you. Today, our guest is Jack Potthast. Welcome.
Thank you.
Jack's with Foundation Insurance. They do life, property, and casualty, and that's commercial and personal insurance. He's the branch manager for the office here in Louisville, Kentucky, and their headquarters is in Falls Church, Virginia, right?
That's correct.
Well, welcome to the Respect the Math podcast, Jack. Tell us more about yourself and Foundation Insurance and why you're here.
Yeah. So I moved here to Louisville about 7 years ago, and I moved down here to open up our branch in Louisville. So I'm a third-generation insurance agent, but I'm a second generation to the business. So my dad founded the agency in 1994 out of the basement of our house. And, we've had a lot of success writing with a lot of different carriers, but in particular, our flagship carrier, Erie Insurance. And, when I first, kind of backing up a little bit, when I first graduated college, I thought, I don't want to work for Dad. I don't want the nepotism and blah, blah, blah. So I went to work for a sales company in Washington, D.C., selling copiers and document management systems, and just got a lot of experience doing cold calling, working with business owners, that type of thing. So after doing that for about a year, my dad came to me and said, hey, and I was engaged at the time, and he said, hey, you've got this great opportunity. Our flagship carrier, Erie, they're expanding. They're only in 11 states in D.C. right now. They're expanding to a 12th state, Kentucky. This could be a great opportunity for you and your fiance to move to an area that's less expensive than D.C. and start a family, that type of thing, and manage your own office and kind of be your own boss, that type of thing. So that intrigued me. So we took the leap of faith. My wife was a Navy brat, so she's used to moving. She was like, yeah, I'll move. Let's do it.
Yeah.
So I didn't know anything about Louisville or Kentucky, but I thought it was a great opportunity. The more I talked to my dad about it, the more I just kind of, prayed about everything like that. So we did. So I worked for my dad in the Virginia office with my brother as well. My brother's in the business and had been at that point for about 4 years. That was a really fun year and a half working with both of them. Our offices were I was in a cube. They had offices.
Yeah. Paying your dues.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we were all right next to each other, and then so that was really fun. I learned the business, and then like I set out to do, when Erie first kind of rolled out their commercial policies, I came down here and opened our branch, and here we are 7 years later. We've experienced a lot of growth, and it's been a lot of fun.
Nice. Now, what made you guys choose Louisville?
Yeah, so I think when they had the opportunity to say, hey, we want you to expand into Kentucky, there was kind of some stipulations. They said, we want you to open up a brick and mortar office. We want it to be kind of retail-esque because Erie doesn't like to advertise. They like to kind of do that through their agents. So the only requirement was you got to open up kind of a retail storefront, but you can choose anywhere you want to be in the state. So basically chose Louisville because it was the most populated city.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, most businesses, most people.
And you were restricted at that point to Kentucky anyways, right? So it was Louisville or Lexington essentially,
Yeah,
right?
pretty much. Those were the two cities they looked at. I don't know if they looked at Bowling Green at all. But pretty much I think just looked at Louisville and Lexington.
Yeah.
So Louisville was a little more populated, a little bigger of a city.
Yeah.
And then kind of started looking, kind of drilling down where in Louisville they wanted to be, and stumbled upon St. Matthews, and so we've been there ever since. Yeah,
you mentioned kind of cutting your teeth out of school, doing sales. I recommend everybody, even if you don't plan on doing sales for a career, at least just take a sales job temporarily. The skills that you learn there, communicating with people, your logical and critical thinking skills, you have to be able to hone all that to be able to be successful at sales. And I think those skills translate to almost every aspect of life. You can have better personal relationships, better professional relationships. And then if you decide to stay in sales, we all know that the top of the sales community makes more money than doctors and lawyers and even business. I mean, sales is where it's at. And regardless of what type of economic environment you're in, political environment, business environment, companies always need good salespeople, right? So if you can develop that skill, you have a lifelong ability to earn a nice living and build a nice life for yourself. So I wanted to mention that. What do you think you brought with you, besides obviously sales and learning about copy machines and printers? What do you think you brought with you from that to the current position that you're in?
Yeah, so I think confidence was big when I first, and the ability to take no for an answer. But I take that there's kind of two parts to that: getting no as an answer and combating that, overcoming that objection, but then also being able to handle rejection. When I started out at the copier company I was working at, we had 9 people in my class of recruits. So it was me and 6 other people right out of college and 1 or 2 other people, and we had this 3-week training program, and then they set us loose, and it was cold call, and there's a lot of rejection involved with that.
80-90% probably.
Yes, it's pretty high.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people, some of it might be, I'm interested in talking to you, but I just signed a new lease, and my lease in my copier will be up in 5 years. Call me back then. It's so it was funny. So all these people that I thought were in my training class that were really smart, high energy people that I thought were being really successful, ended up flaming out within the first couple months. I mean, I was there, when I hit month 12 at that company, I was one of 2 people left in my training class.
Wow.
So you learn how to handle rejection. You learn the confidence and the ability to talk to business owners, and because I think when you're first starting out, when I was 22, 23 years old, I didn't think my time was this business owners I wouldn't be worth their time.
Yeah.
And you kind of learn that, no, I have something to offer. I have an expertise. I know what I'm doing. I can provide value to their business, and you kind of, that almost kind of flip, now that I've been doing what I've been doing for 8 or 9 years, it's almost kind of the opposite. Now I'm like, hey, my time's really valuable. If if you want to meet with me, then you got to be prepared to actually, provide something that I can work on. I'm not going to just go waste my time. So
yeah,
you kind of have to have that transition, I think, in your head that no, I'm an expert. I can do this. I'm worth the time. And when you have that mindset, it kind of changes things. They talked about a lot of times in my training, they're like, don't tell these business owners that you're just completely available and free, right?
because they'll come off as desperate or not successful.
Exactly. Yeah. They're like, I'd love to meet with you, but I'm busy for the next 2 weeks.
Right. Even if it's not true.
I'm booked up. Yeah. Just making yourself sound more busy.
Yeah.
I need to get on this guy's calendar. He must be offering something. So, you don't have to necessarily do it that way, but I just think having that mindset and confidence goes a long way. Yeah.
Perception is reality, and they're not doing anything dishonest. You didn't tell them you were booked up for the next 2 weeks. You just said, I have an opening 2 weeks from now at 4 p.m. And so
exactly.
It makes you look like you're more in demand than you might be. And I think everybody that made it as a business owner or in some sales capacity respects that hustle, right? Mm-hmm. The fact that you made those code calls, you paid your dues, you learned kind of how to talk to people. And for me, it's about relating to people.
Definitely.
Learning what language they speak. One of the many things I've learned from being in business, I think has really helped round me out as a human being, is I'm around really conservative people. I'm around really liberal people. I'm around apolitical people. I'm around a broad spectrum of people. And if I'm going to do business with these folks, develop a relationship, and do business with them over the long term, which is what I really want, I tell folks, I don't want one-off transactions. I want relationships. I want to be doing business with you 10 years from now. If I'm going to do that, I've got to learn how to talk to them, and I got to develop some level of empathy to be able to put myself in their shoes. I'm not the most conservative person politically. I've got some conservative views, some liberal views, but I can have a conversation with the most rabid Trump fan or the most rabid anti-Trump leftist, person. So, and that translates into your personal life too. I think it's helped me understand my wife better, and my son, and my friends, and people I interact with. So I'm a big proponent of sales, even if you don't plan on doing that the rest of your life. I think getting that experience, learning how to talk to people, learning how to relate to people, and connect with people is really helpful. So you mentioned sales. I think that would translate directly into what you're doing now, because you're not just out there writing policies and wearing many hats. You have to communicate with your staff, and you have to learn how each person is motivated a little bit differently, right? Mm-hmm. Each person responds to different incentives and the way you talk to them. And there's a whole art I'm sure that you're learning there too when you're managing people. Tell us about Foundation Insurance. What separates you guys from the typical insurance company someone might be doing business with? Obviously, you don't have the marketing budget and overhead of Allstate and Farm Bureau and State Farm and et cetera. And I'm assuming that translates into you guys having more competitive rates and products and so forth.
Yeah. So I think, what separates us as an agency, you talked about relationships, being able to relate to people. We're extremely relationship oriented. We always try to do right by our customer and by our carriers. We have very strong core values as a company, and we really stand by that in who we hire and who we work with and how we operate. And, as far as just competitive position, our contract with Erie is what separates us from a lot of other agencies in town. So what Erie did when they'd expanded into Kentucky, rather than giving contracts to existing agencies that are already doing a lot of business here in Kentucky or already large agencies, they wanted agencies like us that that were already working with them, that knew them and knew their products, to open up an office. And they promised us when we did that they wouldn't give contracts to these other big agencies. So when I go up against on like a commercial account, I know that this account has, and there's maybe some rare instances, but really they've never seen a quote from Erie before. They've never seen a proposal from Erie.
Yeah.
And if they're working with the same big players, the USI, Assured Partners, Shepherd, which used to be Logan Lavelle Hunt, and Assured has bought up a lot of the big ones. Underwriters Group, which actually just got bought out. Really, they're all kind of getting bought.
Yeah, consolidation.
A lot of consolidation in my business. But if they have worked with those types of carriers, which are the big players on these large commercial accounts, or even companies that haven't bought, like InsureMax, which is a great company, but they don't have Erie. So that kind of is what separates us. And when I'm calling on a prospect, I get a lot of what do you have that my agent can't offer? Right? My agent has every carrier. They have Liberty Mutual. They have motorists. They have auto owners. They have Cincinnati. It's like, and then I love that objection, because I'm like, I actually have something to offer that your agent doesn't, and that you've never seen before. And that is a proposal or quote from the 16th largest carrier in the country that's only in 12 states and DC.
And that's Erie?
That's Erie.
Yeah.
And not only that, we have a preferred contract with Erie. And what I mean by that is we have a fantastic relationship with them. We're the 5th largest Erie agent in the country by premium volume.
Oh, wow.
And we have won their Quality Agent of the Year award 3 times. We're one of only 4 agencies that have won that more than twice.
Wow.
There's only so many that even won it once.
Yeah.
And I know that as far as my ability to price things the way I need to, get the coverage I need to, and then when stuff does happen as far as a claim and things like that, I know that Erie stands by what they offer and their customer service, and I know that we're going to take good care of our clients. So it kind of gives us a unique position, that, like I said, when I kind of come in to an account, it's, hey, I'm providing something unique that you've never seen before and that your agent can't provide for you.
Yeah. You mentioned your core values. Can you talk about those?
Yeah. So, and I'll probably not be able to remember all 5.
Give us as many as you can recall.
Yeah. So, honesty and integrity is probably the biggest one. A lot of times in my industry, there's agents that will say things to underwriters or put things on applications that aren't true because they want to get the business and they want the commission. Mm-hmm. We're big on being honest with all of our employees, with all of our customers, and with all of our companies. And I think that when you are consistently honest and people know you're being honest, that goes a long way. Mm-hmm. One thing is competitiveness. We like to hire people that are competitive, and we want to be competitive. I mean, we're trying to grow. We want to be, we want to write new accounts, and we know that a lot of what we do ends up being about price. Now, we like to say that price is only one aspect of many aspects. Mm-hmm. It's not just price, but that's part of it. We want to be competitive on price. We want to be competitive on going after accounts and then, Oh gosh, see, I've only gotten 2 in, and
I put you on the spot.
Yeah.
I put you on the spot. We can come back to that if you.
We have them up on our wall. I see them every day. I'm sure more will come back to me.
You have no excuse. Yeah, we'll come. We'll come back to that. You mentioned level of service. I'm assuming that, unlike the bigger guys and the transactional people only looking for a commission, you have a built-in incentive to follow through on the claim side too, because you guys handle all that in-house. A lot of folks will just write the policy, get paid, and move on, not worry about it, and then outsource the claim handling, right? I'm assuming you guys handle that from start to finish. And
so the carrier is responsible for handling the claims, but we do get involved anytime that we need to. Now, one thing, and not to harp too much here on Erie, but they've won a lot of awards for customer service on claims handling. That's one reason we love them. And, but we actually do have an in-house claims manager that we hired. He actually used to worked for Travelers for 10 years, worked for Erie a number of years, and we hired him to assist with clients where the claim's not going well. Because at the end of the day, we're selling claims. We're selling the ability to handle your claim and pay out on a claim when you have one. And, so it's really important for us to make sure that goes smoothly and that our clients get paid. So we actually hired him to strictly just be able to be there to jump in when things aren't going right. And the agent will get involved too. Like I can call the branch manager. I've got his cell phone number. He'll pick up for me right away and say, "Hey Jack, how you doing?" Knows me, knows my wife, and he'll get involved too if he needs to, or the claims manager, whoever it is. So we jump in as needed, but we also trust that our carriers are going to do the right thing and handle the claims. So when we turn in a claim to them, we trust that that's going to go well.
They have the resources and everything to handle the claim. If there's an issue, a member of your staff needs to get involved. You're happy to do that, to facilitate it and do whatever you need to do to push it through. I was thinking in terms of price, you have that preferred relationship with Erie. Does that give you an advantage there too, price-wise?
It does. I think there's things, in commercial insurance, you actually have the ability to price an account based on the experience of the account, the type of account, the management. So you're kind of doing a lot, when it comes to personal auto and home, you plug in everything. It's an algorithm, spits out a number. Right? Yeah, you can't change the pricing at all. The only thing you can do is change the coverages and the deductibles to change the price.
Yeah.
On commercial, you actually can go up or down by 50% on the rates, on the filed rates that the carrier has with the state.
Yeah.
And, I think, so we always kind of say in my business, there's 2 sales on commercial. I'm selling to the underwriter and I'm selling to the client.
Yeah.
And sometimes the bigger sale is to the underwriter.
Sure.
I know that if I can sell them on why this account deserves specific pricing, assuming all the coverages are there and we can sell them on the service as well, that I'm going to get the account. Bearing that the agent maybe drops their price or something like that. But I think our ability to sell accounts to our underwriters, because they have so much trust in us and we've consistently performed for so many years with them, that it's not hard for me to get the pricing I need to get. Whereas a newer agent or an agent with less volume or less experience or not as good experience historically as us is not going to be able to get that same pricing that I'm able to get.
You've got leverage because of your reputation with them.
Exactly.
They know you're not going to send them a high-risk client and underbid it and end up being a liability.
They know we care about our book of business and making sure that we're putting good clients on the books. They trust us. Yeah.
We were talking price. It always amazes me what people are willing to give up to save a few bucks, right?
Yeah.
Some people are just price sensitive. You come up and try to sell them something, and they have a predefined notion of what the price of it should be. And if your price is 1 penny above that, they won't even talk to you. And I always tell people, price is one half of the scenario. The other half is, what are you getting in exchange for what you're spending? And there's so many people out there, you can't even get to that second part of the conversation because they have this sticker shock price sensitivity. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
I'm sure you probably run into that in your line of work too, right?
Well, that's one reason I've kind of gotten away from doing as much auto and home as I used to. And I think as an agency, why we've always kind of focused more on commercial. It seems on the commercial side, there's a little less price sensitivity, and it's, services becomes very important when it's a business owner's, livelihood. It's their business, it's their baby, and they need certificates of insurance to be able to do the work they do, and they need to, be able to pick up the phone and call someone and know that we're going to be there for them and we're going to be able to take care of what they need. I think that makes them a little less price sensitive. They know if they're getting really good service, they're willing to pay for that service. On the auto and home side, you might get some people like that. There's some people that naturally know, hey, I'm getting a really great product with great coverages, and I know that I've got great service with the agency I'm at and with the carrier that I'm with. But auto and home is very commoditized, and I blame the insurance companies for commoditizing it. All the commercials, the State Farm, it's like every other commercial is Nationwide, Allstate, State Farm, Geico, Progressive. They're just everywhere, and so it's just become a commodity. Hey, you can go shop for this thing and just buy it online, and it's just a thing you need to buy. So you can just, whatever the cheapest price is, just buy it.
And guess who's paying for those advertisements?
You are.
The customers, yeah.
10% of your premium.
Yeah, I had a guest mention in the modern digital world, if you're not paying for the product, you are the product.
Yeah.
So you think you're getting away with using Spotify for free, but instead of paying the fee and not getting the commercials and having all your personal information, like you said, commoditized and bought and sold. That's kind of the idea there. We mentioned Erie, but you are an independent agent, correct?
Yes.
Are there some other lines you'd like to mention?
Yeah, so we represent probably 12, 13 different carriers. I've done, we have kind of a niche program with the American Rental Association. They have an insurance program, and we actually have their longest standing independent agent. They used to sell direct, and then back in about 94, 95, they went to an independent agent model, and my dad was their first agent they appointed. And it's been a really, really fun market to go after. Equipment and rental and party rental business owners are just salty there with people. They're great people. I've loved traveling all over the state of Indiana and Kentucky and going and meeting with all these different equipment and party rental owners. And we go to the big American Rental Association show every year, and we have a booth there. The insurance program has a booth, and I get to meet agents from all over the country and kind of hear them, and then get to meet and talk to all these different business owners. And it's just a great industry, and I've loved helping them and kind of getting involved in that and being a part of the association and giving back to the association. So that's a big one. It's kind of like, again, very niche that I've done. And I represent the whole state. I do the whole state of Indiana, and then I actually kind of share Kentucky with another agent that's out in Bowling Green. But he's not real active in the program, so I'm kind of pretty much the de facto guy for Indiana and Kentucky. Then our Virginia office does Virginia, D.C., Maryland, and Delaware. So we have about 5 states that we're kind of the official ARA representative.
And that's called the American Rental Association?
Yep.
Never even heard of it.
Yeah, so it's like if you go to rent like a tent, table, chairs for like a wedding,
like
or
bouncy house, or
bouncy house, or if you go, if you're a contractor and you're renting like equipment. So there's a lot of rental stores. You've probably heard of the big ones, or like United Rental, and like around here, Arts Rental's a big one. There's a number of them, but it's a really fun niche program, and we've had a lot of success with it. And that's kind of the biggest one that comes to mind outside of Erie. We do represent West Bend, Progressive, Hanover, Hartford, Travelers, a number of different carriers that have all filled a great need for us. Our agency, they're all great companies. But kind of our strongest relationship has been Erie.
So at the end of the day, you're going to shop around, find them the right carrier, the right combination of benefits and options to best suit their needs.
Definitely. And we kind of target industries that we know our carriers are good at. So, I know that like Erie is like the best at restaurants. So I go after restaurants. They have a square footage program, so they rate liability on square footage instead of sales. There's no audit. It's been phenomenal. So I go after a lot of restaurants knowing that I've got probably the best program out there with Erie, but that I also have 3 or 4 other carriers that if for some reason it's not the right fit for Erie, I can shop it with these other carriers.
When you're training your sales team to go out and find those leads, what's your primary strategy? Are you doing chambers of commerce events? Are you doing, obviously you do BNI, and we can talk a little bit about that. Are you doing any cold calling or any type of social media engagement, pay for click kind of stuff? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, we haven't really done a lot of online or social media stuff, and we have a website and we try and get the SEO and stuff. But for the most part, with a new agent, it's, we want you to get involved in the networking. We want you to get involved in the associations. We're involved with the Louisville Apartment Association, Building Industry Association. Obviously, I mentioned the American Rental Association. And then a lot of cold calling. When we first start, my dad likes to joke with me. When I first started, he bought me a brand new pair of loafers for my birthday that I wore for work. And after about 3 months, I was like, or 4 or 5 months later, I came up and was like, "Hey, Jack, what do you want for Christmas?" Like, "I need a new pair of loafers." He's like, "I just got you something for your birthday." I was like, I was just pounding pavement.
Nice. Literally knocking doors.
Wore a hole out in them, yeah.
Wow.
And I want I think that's the best way to just cut your teeth and learn the business. You're going to stumble upon a lot of great opportunities. You're going to stumble upon some great timing. You're also going to get rejection a lot, like we talked about, a lot of rejection.
Yeah.
But I think for a new agent that's trying to build a book of business, you can only get so much out of networking. I think, you just need to go out and kind of get it and earn it. And it's just, you get so much great experience from it. And then, the goal will be that after a year or two, you're not really doing that anymore. I mean, here I'm 8-9 years into this business, and I maybe make 2 cold calls a quarter,
Mm-hmm. But you don't have to. You paid your dues.
Which are strategic. They're more like, hey, I've been trying to get into this business. I'm going to go drop in on them. Yeah. Versus I'm just going to go hit 30 businesses today.
Yeah.
So that's, because once you build a book of clients, and if you do a good job for your clients, they're going to refer you. You build centers of influence. You build referral sources. So we've been big on just kind of doing that naturally without doing tons of advertising, without doing any of the social media stuff. Yeah. I think that's better on the auto home side. If you're doing a lot of this like kind of marketing, online marketing for the auto and home, which I think could be very good. I know that a lot of agents that have had a lot of success doing that, but since we're more focused on commercial, we've always just kind of said, hey, just go out and get it.
Yeah. Yeah. Just pay your dues. Go, like you said, wear out your shoes and knock doors and
make phone calls,
kiss babies, and do all the
exactly
do all the public stuff. In terms of paying your dues and making those phone calls and building up that book of business, what does an ideal referral or lead look like to you?
Yeah, so I'd say an existing business that has at least 5 employees. So we always talk about, like, if you've got a fleet of vehicles, if you manufacture a product, if you wholesale product, if you have a brick and mortar store, those are types of clients we're looking for. Now in the insurance business, startups can have trouble getting insurance sometimes. I'm happy to work with startups as long as there's someone that's organized. Mm-hmm. I've met with a business owner that, or like in this particular case was a restaurant owner. He didn't know what his projected sales were, what his projected payroll was, how many employees he was going to have, how much food he was going to sell. He didn't know. He was like, that's not my ideal client.
Right.
I'm happy to help people, but I need basic information in order to even provide you with a proposal. So existing clients are good because they've got experience, they've got history. But again, I'm happy to help the new business owners. And we've got some carriers that are good at that. A lot of carriers won't even touch you unless you've been in business 3 years.
Yeah, that makes sense from a risk mitigation, liability type standpoint. Yep. Are you willing to give anybody a quote, whether they're already working with another company or not, or would you prefer they be more qualified before they come to you? Or?
Yeah, early in my career, I would have jumped on any opportunity to provide anybody with a quote.
Yeah.
At this point in my career, like I said, you've got to be able to provide me the basic information that I need, and I got to know that you're actually looking to potentially switch your insurance if what I have to offer is better. If it's, if you're just kind of price shopping, hey, I always say price check on aisle 9.
Yeah.
That's not really what I'm interested in. I don't need practice quoting.
Yeah.
But if you think I can help you and advise you, then I'm more than happy to do that.
Yeah, and you've been able to kind of manicure your client list too as you built up that book of business and that following. You don't have to be as aggressive as going after every potential lead, right?
Exactly. Yeah. That's a nice thing about having a book of business. I always try and teach that to the younger salespeople, but it's hard. And sometimes when you're brand new, you do actually need practice quoting. Say, hey, this might not be a very good opportunity, but at least you'll get a lot of experience out of it. Mm-hmm. And then you'll kind of learn as you go. You kind of pick your opportunities, like, hey, this is a good opportunity. This isn't, that type of thing. So
yeah. And in terms of training your sales team, are they kind of building up their books of business too, to where they can be a little more selective going forward?
Yeah, that's the goal. I've got one person right now. She's dedicated pretty much to auto and home, and we hired her for that. We wanted her kind of dedicated auto home person, personal lines, and we're not going to stop her from doing commercial. If she has a commercial opportunity, I'm going to jump in and help her as much as I can. Mm-hmm. And then I have actually hired a client of mine. He owned a diesel repair business, a truck repair business, and I insured him for about 3 or 4 years. He came to me and said, hey, I'd like to sell half of my business.
What's the name of the business? Can you
say? It was Precision Diesel.
Okay.
Out in Shepherdsville, and he sold half of his business to his client, to his partner, and his share, and came to work for me, and it's been great. He's just been crushing it.
Nice.
And then I've got another salesperson that's been with me for about 6 years, who's got a pretty established book and has been doing a good job and continuing to grow his book. So it's the 4 of us right now, and it's we're kind of a fast-paced, competitive environment, but we're also very laid back and get along really well.
What have you learned from managing people like that, from leading a sales force and training and motivating and that kind of stuff?
Well, you learn a lot about yourself.
Yeah.
You know,
At the end of the day, it's all about self-awareness, right?
yeah, you learn a lot about yourself. I mean, I think so. I've never been a very patient person.
Yeah.
And I think I've grown leaps and bounds in my patience by managing people. Just knowing that, like, hey, they're doing their best. They're trying to figure this out. They're motivated. They're trying to figure this out. But it takes time. It takes knowledge. It takes education. So, just being there to answer, whether it's doesn't seem like the best question, doesn't matter. Just be patient, be kind, answer it. If it's the same question over and over again, it's like, okay, why is this not sticking? Let's talk about this.
But you got to do it in a diplomatic way, and you have to meet them where they're at, right?
For sure. And like, I think for me too, since I'm still selling, I'm still trying to grow my book, that just the balance of, okay, I've got a client that needs something, or I'm trying to run a quote, and then I've got, one of them coming into my office needing something, just kind of learning to prioritize, like, if what I'm doing is crazy important, like, hey, can you wait a second? Or if I know what I'm doing can wait, let them come to me and, and work with them on it. So, and then when they first start, I try and spend as much time as I can with them as possible, shadowing me going out and running appointments with them, and then when they have accounts to work on, I think those are the best opportunities to learn. Mm-hmm. Right? When you're actually doing it. Like, I think you learn from doing something so much easier than you can from just listening to someone else tell you how to do it. Yeah. And then you can walking through the accounts with them and talking to the underwriter and having them, kind of learn all these things. That's always, I feel like, been the best way.
Yeah, this branch is your baby, right? I mean, you started it. Yeah. Was it just you and maybe a few support staff when you started, or?
So the idea, actually, when I came down, Erie rolled out their personal lines first, and then a year later their commercial lines. So we actually had a guy that was from Liberty Mutual that came down, started up for personal lines. He was a auto home guy. And the idea was that he would kind of run the auto home side of things. I'd come down and run the commercial side of things. About 6 to 12 months after I moved here, really wasn't just, and he had been here about a year and a half, 2 years. It just really wasn't working out. Mm-hmm. And so we ended up letting him go, and then I kind of took over as branch manager. So originally it was just the two of us, and then we actually hired the one producer I mentioned who'd been with us about 6-7 years. We hired him on like shortly after I moved down, and so it was kind of the three of us, just sales. It was just a satellite sales office. Yeah. And then about maybe 6 to 12 months after I moved here, we hired a service person who's still with us. She's awesome. She's kind of become our office manager. Yeah. And so I kind of assumed the role of branch manager and sales manager, maybe 12 months after I moved here, kind of more so. At first, it was just kind of, no one really needed to manage it. It was just kind of, just go out and sell. Mm-hmm. We need revenue. Yeah. We don't need anyone to manage anything because there is nothing to manage.
Right. Give me something in here and then we'll start managing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then that role just kind of evolved as we grew, as we hired more. It was like, hey, well, if we hire another salesperson, there's no one else here to manage them and train them but me, And at first, because I was still so young and growing my book, we tried to hire someone that had insurance experience, so I didn't really have to train them. Mm-hmm. This gentleman had been already let go at a couple other places, and we thought, oh, we can fix him or whatever. I don't know. Yeah, that didn't work out. We've kind of come to the conclusion that the best way to go about it is hire someone that has a few years of sales experience, or a little bit of sales experience, but doesn't know insurance. We always kind of joke, almost anyone can learn insurance, but not everyone has the natural ability for sales, right?
Or the ability to learn sales.
Yeah, exactly. We always have this mantra like, hey, if there's 100 lawyers on a bus, how many of them could you teach insurance? Yeah. All 100 of them. Yeah. How many of them can cold call? Yeah. Maybe 8 of them. Yeah. 5 of them. Yeah. So we've kind of figured out, I think we've gotten better at hiring, and we've gotten better at training as we go. It's always an improvement. We can always improve, obviously. I mean, we'll never say we've cracked the code to anything, but it's been a learning experience, and we've learned a lot. So.
Don't you think it's interesting what motivates and doesn't motivate people? We had a guest on named Mike, and he has a company that's called Culture Index, and it's basically, he describes it as Moneyball for your business. So he goes in and does in-depth analysis and interviews with your employees and tries to identify their personality type, how they like to get recognition, how they don't, what motivates them, what doesn't. It's really fascinating. And he told me that he worked with a company and they had a annual awards banquet. And this girl, I forgot what position she was in, but she was a rock star. She was phenomenal. So they thought, okay, let's bring her up on stage and give her a trophy and tell her how great she is.
Yeah.
She was horrified because a certain personality type doesn't want public recognition.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so he had to learn the hard way with this girl, this employee, that what you do is you give her acknowledgement as part of the team, and you can acknowledge her if you want, but with everyone else.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Or you go to her personally and say, hey, you're doing a great job. Mm-hmm. And so I took away from that. It's really interesting what motivates and doesn't motivate people.
For sure.
And you've got to learn with that when you're managing people and training them. Another thing I heard was the thing about delegation is that it's good news and bad news. Mm-hmm. The bad news is they're not going to do it the way you would do it. The good news is they're not going to do it the way you would do it. And if you can understand to accept the things about them they do, the way they do things that aren't, exactly the way you would do it, and in turn embrace the things they bring to the table that you might not have thought of, or they have a different approach, you can really learn to build your team up and get them to a place where they can do things as a team that you could not do individually. Can you talk about that? Have you had any examples of that? Or
Yeah, I think it's true. I think, I've learned that some of my salespeople, they kind of want more feedback from me than others. Like, hey, I want to do a review and kind of see where we're at. And I constantly know that they're doing a good job. And then others just want to be left alone, know, which I think to your point. And so I think just learning how to cater to each person, letting them know hey, great job, you had a great month. Or hey, let's set up a time let's go have lunch and we can kind of talk about where you're at and things like that. So I think I get so much in my own world. It's not that I'm not, kind of monitoring what they're doing and being aware of what they're doing, but if they're doing a bad job, I'm going to let them know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think maybe they don't always realize hey, not hearing from Jack means that he's happy with what you're doing.
Yeah. So your no news is good news.
Yeah,
Jack?
no news is good news, and I've had to learn that I need to give more affirmation and more feedback. So I'm working on that.
Some folks don't need it. Some people have to have it.
Exactly. I think there's different sales personality types. I've ever heard the book Challenger. They talk about 7 different sales personalities. One of them they call the lone wolf, just leave me alone and let me do my thing. And
get out of my way, I'll make you a bunch of money.
They might not always do it exactly how you want them to do it, but the end result is going to be a good result.
Yeah.
So I think there's just learning what each person's style is. Personally, what motivates me is the recognition. I want the recognition. I want to know that, but I think at least that's how I started out. Now, at this point in time, I think being more in a management position, I care more about the growth of the business and our employees more than I do about any of my own personal recognition or money or anything like that. And I think, some people, they're in sales purely just for money. If that's their motivation, I don't love that. I think your motivation needs to be a lot more than just money. Obviously, we all need money to live our lives, but if you're purely motivated by money, you're probably not going to end up being very good at sales. Mm.
Have you heard the brain surgeon example? You have an advanced form of brain cancer, and there's 2 surgeons you can choose from. The guy who is the best surgeon on the planet, but he's purely in it for narcissistic reasons. He wants to be the best surgeon. He wants to live the lifestyle and make the money and drive the car and speak at all the events and stuff. Or you can have the guy that's pretty good, and just maybe a notch below this guy, and he's motivated by, or he or she, are motivated by strictly altruistic ideas. They want to give back. They want to help people. They want to do the right thing. I'm picking the guy who's the best. I don't know about you. So at a certain point, it's nice to have ideals, right? But at a certain point at the end of the day, pragmatism comes into play. So when you mention the guy or gal who's only motivated by money, not necessarily lasting long in sales, it made me think of that.
Yeah.
I wanted to kind of transition into more about Jack the human being here, if you don't mind. Mm-hmm. I am 43 years old. I'm 18 years into being an entrepreneur, and every year that passes especially starting a few years ago, I feel this ever expanding need to help other folks that might not be where I'm at, professionally or personally. I view the path of success as climbing a ladder rung by rung. And I find myself looking down a lot to people who are ambitious people working hard, looking for an opportunity. And I want to reach down and kind of, give them a hand, help pull them up some of those rungs. Do you feel an obligation to do that now that you're down that path of building and growing a business? Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So I think kind of going back to motivation, really like one of my biggest motivators is being able to provide a vocation, right? So more than just a job. I want to provide a career, a fun, safe place to work for people.
Meaning, a sense of purpose.
Yeah, meaning and purpose. Like one of the people I've hired recently, about a year and a half ago, didn't really know what she wanted to do and didn't really have much experience in any one thing. It kind of jumped around a lot. And we really kind of gave her a vocation and a purpose, and she loves what she does now, and she views this as a long-term career.
Nice.
Doesn't
that feel good?
It feels great, yeah. I had another person that my wife met at the Gildas Club. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so she was a cancer survivor like my wife, and she had been out of work for about a year and a half, and because she had just gone through all the stress of cancer and stuff, and she was in this like kind of high performing accounting job, like for a casino, and it was really stressful, a lot of long hours. She was really kind of scared to go back into the workforce. And it was tough. It's like, this girl has an MBA and all this accounting experience. I'm like, it doesn't really translate to insurance though. But I was just like, hey, well, we've got a job opening as a receptionist. If you want to kind of, I don't know if that's beneath you or not, just start low. Yeah. And she just kind of fell in love with the company and our culture, and now she's making double what she did when we first started her out.
Nice.
And she's, going on to a, she's got her insurance license, and she's, same thing, got this vocation, this career, and despite her accounting background, she's like, this is what I'm, this is what she loves to do now. So, and we gave her the flexibility to work from home, so I think those kind of motivations for me are what's bigger. Like we've taken employees that felt like they were these big agencies that felt like they were just a number. And if they needed, extra time off from work, or they need to be able to work from home certain times and go let the dog out or whatever, and they didn't have that opportunity. And, we're a very family oriented agency. We bring people in, we can provide the same salary and the same benefits that they were getting before, but now they have that flexibility and that kind of more family culture and lifestyle. So I think it's, that's hugely motivating for me. When a client has a claim, and you want to talk more about me personally.
No, talk about what you're here. It's the Jack Show.
So when, the other thing that I think provides a lot of like sense of satisfaction for me or purpose, is like if a client's going through a serious claim and you're be able to be there for them. I had a client, last summer that called me Sunday night at 6 p.m. I don't pick up my work phone at 6 p.m. on Sunday.
Right.
But I let it go to voicemail unless I know the number, and I know that they wouldn't call me unless it was an emergency. Right. But I didn't have this number saved. It was an auto home client. I let it go to voicemail. I get the voicemail. He said, my house is on fire.
Oh, wow.
So I obviously immediately called him back.
Sure.
Filed the claim, looked up the address, drove out there, called a restoration company on my way out there and said, I've got a client with the house on fire. I need you guys out here as quickly as possible. And my restoration company contact, she knows if I'm calling her at 7 p.m. on Sunday, she knows why I'm calling.
Yeah.
So she picked right up, got her crew out there. I went out there and said, can I buy you guys, some food? Can I book a hotel reservation for you? What can I do for you?
Sure.
Those are the types of moments in my career that have felt so much more meaningful than just selling a policy and moving on.
Yeah.
Those people are devastated. It was their livelihood. Imagine, I've had 2 clients, their house burned down, and if it was me personally, I would be 100% devastated. And in both instances, these clients were crying to me when it happened.
Yeah. I can see by the look on your face just telling the story.
It's sad.
It impacted you.
They thought they lost their cat. They found it a week later, thankfully.
Okay. Cats are crafty, aren't they?
Yeah. The other one was a generator that exploded. This was like back in 2017. Somehow their dog was like far enough away it didn't die. I was like,
wow.
in both instances, I was shocked the animal didn't die.
Yeah.
But being there for people in those moments, it's important. It's big. Yeah.
I can tell by the look on your face and just the way you're telling the story, it's personal to you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're exuding empathy and compassion right now. Yeah, that's cool. So there's a little bit of a crossover between the professional relationship, but also having that personal connection to your clients. And I would think it's something you hope your clients never have to file a claim, right?
Yeah.
But if they do, you're going to be there for them and do right by them. Yeah. Shifting back to taking care of your people on your team at your office. I always thought it was a great responsibility, number one, but also a privilege to know that the opportunities that my company creates helps people pay their mortgages and helps them send their kids to a good school and helps them save for their retirement and so forth.
Yep.
It's a big responsibility first and foremost to know you have to keep running the business responsibly with integrity and keep money coming in to do that. But B, it's a great privilege and an honor to be able to do that,
Definitely.
So.
Yeah, no, I love when my employees tell me that they're buying a house or buying a new car. One of my employees bought an above ground pool recently. I'm like, that's awesome.
Yeah. Or starting a family or whatever.
Yeah, start a family. Just hearing about their successes.
Yeah.
Being able to go take nice vacations. The fact that we're able to give them the PTO. They have the money to book those things. I'm not one of those types of managers or bosses that when a employee says, I'm going to take some time off and go here, I'm like, all right, well,
what am I going to do while you're gone?
Yeah, exactly. No, I'm like, man, that's awesome. Yeah. Have a great time. I hope it's awesome. I hope you have a fantastic time. So, no, I'm the same way. I think knowing that you're providing, and then it's a relationship that goes both ways. They're helping the business. Mm-hmm. You're helping them. You provide opportunity for people. And I think, providing opportunity is a really rewarding, awesome thing.
I like to tell my team members when they thank me for doing something for them, I say, you're welcome, but it's my privilege to do that.
Yeah.
And your success is my success. Mm-hmm. The great Zig Ziglar once said, you can have everything you want in life if you're just willing to help enough other people get what they want. So
yeah,
I can tell that shows through to you as a human being, but also interacting with your team and also your clients. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have that in common. Can you talk about, did you want to talk about your personal beliefs and how that translates into I love talking about the things you're not supposed to talk to about religion and politics.
Religion and politics. Yeah. I'm with you.
Yeah. So.
So, and that's actually one of the big things my dad is a devout Catholic. I'm a Catholic. My mom is actually very evangelical. So it's funny. I kind of got exposed to both sides, which, so I'm like kind of maybe a cross between the two.
Yeah.
I love the Catholic Church. But I am probably a little more evangelical than most Catholics. But so my dad is really, really big on doing everything with integrity through God and running our business in a way that would honor God.
Yeah.
And he talks about, I always, after every single interview I have, I call my dad afterward and I say, just tell him, give him feedback. I talked to this person, blah, blah, blah. His first question is always like, are they a believer?
Oh, really?
Yeah. And
when you say interview, like interviewing a client?
Interviewing a prospective employee.
Or an employee, okay.
Yeah. And I'm like, well, I'm not allowed to ask that.
Right.
Yeah. There's laws against that.
Yeah.
But he's like, yeah, but could you tell? Did you get a sense? Did you get a feel? So, my family is very, I don't like the word religious, but we're very faith-based. Mm-hmm. And, a lot of the things I do in my life are because of my faith. And I'm not at a place in my journey with my faith that I'm, nearly as strong as my parents, but the belief has never wavered. My wife and I really looked around for a church here in Louisville, and when we first moved here, and then because of many circumstances with having to be out of town a lot, we never really kind of found our niche. Every time I think about it, like right now, I'm like, man, I need to figure that out.
I've got several connections in that space. I can get you plugged in.
Yeah, I would love to.
I'll do that.
Yeah, I'd love to get connected from you.
I've got connections from the small, just non-denominational base, mm-hmm. all the way up to the big, like Southeast Christian or that kind of thing. So we'll talk afterwards about that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things, and like one of the biggest things I do. Have you heard of the Bible in a Year.
Bible and a year?
Bible in a Year.
No, but I'm assuming you read the book in a year?
So you read it in a year. It's this priest that does it. So he reads for like 15 minutes, and then he like talks for like 5 minutes afterwards. It's like a 20-minute podcast.
And you do it every day for a year?
I wish I could say I was so good at doing it. That's the goal. Yeah. So that's the biggest way I like to kind of contemplate and spend time with God, is doing that little 20-minute podcast, usually just like in the morning if I'm like walking my dog or just kind of getting ready for work. I try to spend more time like in quiet and prayer. I always, need to improve that area. But yeah, so I mean, that's, faith is definitely a big part of my life and my family's life. And it's, without that, I don't think I'd be as successful as I am.
Yeah, my story is a little bit different than yours. I grew up Christian in various different churches and things like that. And at various points during that process, I didn't believe, I did believe. Today, I describe myself as an agnostic atheist.
Okay.
But I'm probably the least hostile towards religion, agnostic atheist you'll ever meet. Insofar as I'm a good person now, I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that I was raised in a Christian environment with Christian values.
Yeah.
I have the same values as you. If you were drowning, I wouldn't check your card to make sure you were, Lutheran or atheist or whatever.
Yeah.
I'd jump in and save you, and you would do the same for me. I give religion in general and Christianity specifically a lot of credit for the majority of the good work done on the planet. I mean, there's a good chance if there's a clean water being run to a village, or a school's being built, or children are being educated or cared for or fed, there's a religious person behind that. In Christianity specifically, not exclusively, but most familiar with that because we're a primarily Christian country, does an absolute ton of that. And I don't understand why the atheist community and the non-believing community is so generally so hostile towards those that believe. Don't you realize most people who go to church on Sunday are told to love their neighbor and have compassion and forgive people and be kind and do good things for people? That makes those are
the values are I don't know how anyone could dislike the values that are being taught.
And for me, it's just strictly intellectual. I got a degree in philosophy, and I'm into physics and science and math and a lot of that. It just doesn't work for me. The packaging, what it's wrapped in, but the values inside the packaging are what matter, Yeah. And so I've had some interesting conversations with some believers and non-believers on here. And one of the reasons I wanted to start the show was I'm a big proponent of free speech.
Yeah.
And I find myself defending Christians and conservatives and Republicans all the time when I'm hardly any of three.
Yeah.
But they have a right to express their views and to live their life the way they want to, and to educate their children the way they want to, and worship the way they want to. And short of calling for violence or threatening people or committing a crime, I'm a huge proponent of free speech. So I'm glad that you shared that with us. And I think the world is a better place, by and large, by religion and Christianity specifically. So I think that's important to mention. So
I agree.
Any comments on that or anything else you'd like to add to that conversation?
So my parents live right near this missionary church, just kind of going back to what you were saying. And I've gotten to meet a lot of really cool priests, missionary priests over the years from all over the place, like Congo and just different countries in Africa. And my dad went, and my mom and dad, I didn't get a chance to go. It's like kind of on my list or bucket list or whatever. But went and actually met one of the priests that he got to know in Arlington that was in this really small town in Mexico. And when this priest got there was trash everywhere. There was like no real education happening. He built a sanitation system in the town, built a school through the church, all these different things. And the church really was kind of the center of the town that really helped kind of rebuild or build this town. And it's just really amazing. And it's I think that's what's tough. I know the Catholic Church has had all of its issues that have been, in recent light, but if you look at the things like the work, the people like that they're doing, it's pretty incredible, and it's inspiring.
Absolutely, yeah. One of my biggest influences is Dave Ramsey. I've been listening to his show for 20 years, and I followed his financial principles, but I'm equally as influenced by him, by his value system and his thoughts on the economy and politics and personal development and his spiritual walk and all that. And I think I've always been kind of blessed, gifted, whatever, with an ability to kind of interact with people and ideas and kind of pick what I like, and I don't have to take it all in and necessarily agree with everything,
Yeah.
but I can do that.
Understand it and respect it.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, I think the world would be a better place if people who disagree could just sit across from each other, have a conversation, not necessarily to try to persuade the other person, but I believe in this, and this is why I believe it, and hopefully the other person can try to empathize and put themselves in that person's shoes and see, well, I don't have to compromise what I believe and what I think, but I could, at least for a moment, try to understand why, from their perspective, they came to those conclusions. They have those beliefs and those values and those ideas. So that's one of the core fundamental principles of starting this show, is to hear what people think and believe and why they think and believe it, and not to persuade or change minds, just to have a conversation and show some empathy and a little respect. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, no, I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, in the interest of keeping the show palatable for our audience, we're going to wrap things up here, but I wanted to recap, thank our guest, Jack Potthast, for joining us today. He's with Foundation Insurance here in Louisville, Kentucky. Their home base is in Falls Church, Virginia. Tell us how to interact with you, phone number, website, social, whatever you'd like to.
So if you Google Foundation Insurance Group, we'll pop right up. FoundationInsuranceGroup.com is the website. Phone number 502-822-2668. That's our office number. My email is jack@F like foundation, I like insurance, G like group, KY for Kentucky.com, jack@figky.com. So pretty easy to find if you Google us. Anyone that's interested in a quote or just some advice, happy to do that. Sometimes people come to me and they want a quote, and I look over their insurance policies and I say, you're good where you're at, or you might want to do this or that, but I'm not always trying to sell you something. Just like to help people. Yeah.
I can tell you from my experience with dealing with small businesses like yours, you're going to get a level of service and attention that you're not going to find from the big guys. It's just the nature of the deal. So support a local business, help Jack and his team provide for their families, and support their personal causes by doing business with them. This segment of 3 questions is brought to you by the nonprofit that I started. It's called See Good to Be Good. It aims to act as a source of hope, motivation, and inspiration to help folks achieve their dreams. We're currently accepting donations to help fund our needs-based scholarship to help a young person pay for their education in the arts. And if you'd like to know more or would like to help, please let us know. I got 3 questions for you. You ready?
Okay, yeah.
Put you on the spot. Why are you successful?
I think, a lot of reasons, I guess. My upbringing being the first thing that comes to mind. The way I was taught. But, I always say my biggest key to success is education, continue to educate myself. That allows me to educate my clients, educate my employees. I think education is key. If you don't know what you're selling, you don't know what you're doing, how can you advise? How can you sell it? How can you teach it to others? Mm-hmm. Right? So I think education is probably my number one key to success.
Okay. Why are you happy?
That's a good one. Happy because of the amount of people in my life that I love and love me back.
Yeah.
Relationships, I think, are, so I went to a Catholic high school, and the headmaster's is really, really intelligent, wise, just great man. And on his senior year, you take this class with him. And one of the big things that always stuck with me, he said, a lot of times people will think that they're happy or that they have to measure each other by money or looks or, status or, athleticism.
Sure.
Because the only thing that you should ever measure yourself or anyone else by is their relationships.
Nice.
And so I think my relationships are what make me happy.
Excellent. Final question. What obligation do you feel to help other people achieve success, pursue their dreams, etc.?
What obligation do I feel?
Yeah.
A large one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's another thing that you might talk about being happy. I think you're really going to only be truly happy if you are helping other people. Mm-hmm. If you're only doing things for yourself, you're never going to be fully happy. I just recently, I guess about a year ago, started doing volunteering in the Big Brother Big Sister program.
Oh, awesome!
So I have a little brother. He's lives in, he's doesn't have a dad or doesn't know his dad, and is actually mostly raised by his grandparents. His grandpa passed away during COVID, and he's a great kid. but it's just been really fun kind of getting to know him and his family and just kind of, helping. And I had expectations of like, oh, he's going to open up to me and talk to me. It's not been a lot of that.
Well, it takes time.
It takes time, but just going out and doing fun outings. And, we went to the Hot Rod show recently.
Nice.
That was really cool.
I did too, yeah.
They do, yeah.
What's his name? We'll give him a shout out.
His name's Vaughn.
Hey, Vaughn, if you're listening.
Yeah.
Hi.
So that's been cool.
Yeah.
We try to get involved with like Catholic charities and different stuff like that. So I think giving back and helping, it's the only way to truly find happiness. I feel like, that and relationships. And if you're in a relationship where it's all give and no, or it's all take and no give, it's not going to be a successful relationship. You're not going to be happy. So.
Yeah. I mentioned earlier, your success is my success. When it comes to free speech and human rights, your human rights are my human rights. When a political issue that shall remain nameless at this point, not to ruffle any feathers, came down from the Supreme Court, and I heard someone say, "Well, that won't affect me because I'm not planning on having a family anytime soon." I said, "Wrong. A threat to anyone's human rights is a threat to everyone's human rights." Mm-hmm. And so I think that's worth mentioning. The great Mark Twain once said, "Stay away from those people who try to disparage your ambitions. Small minds will always do that, but great minds will give you a feeling that you can become great too." I like that.
Yeah, that's a good one.
If you would like to be a guest on our show, or you would like help creating and or distributing your own podcast content, please contact us for more information. I'd like to take a moment to thank the talented people that work behind the scenes to make this podcast happen. There's the effervescent producer, David Snyder, running audio and video, the intrepid David Snyder casting and scripting the show, and finally, the brilliant and gifted David Snyder editing and distributing the show online. I can barely get through that without laughing. I'd like to take a few moments to thank those fine folks for their contributions to the show. I'd like to thank our guest again, Jack Potthast with Foundation Insurance, for being here. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, David.
Thank you, all four of us, yeah. And thank you to our listeners and our sponsors for making this podcast possible and hopefully successful. And we will see you real soon on a future episode of the Respect the Math podcast.